That works out better that way. Leader, you are a leader.
You must, oh, there it is.
Legends and Leapers.
Leader, you are a leader. You are a leader. Rising right out the ranks. You're a leader. Lessons will teach you just how to reach your endless ambitions on. Yeah. Look at yourself in the mirror. Turn that frown upside down. Show what you're working with. You can't depend on someone else to see.
Right. Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are watching this. If you are looking for Legends and Leapers, then you found the right place. This is Legends and Leapers, our monthly virtual program where Ricky and Lauryn get to obviously interview a couple, an industry legend and an industry leaper, and kind of learn a little bit more about them, their careers, and try to find and tie all the see if there's any connective tissue between the two. So before I hand it over to Mr. Smith and Miss Lauryn, just one really major announcement from the national office here at AMAC, and that is our annual conference. So if you have been under a rock or you weren't totally aware, our 40th, that's 4th decades, our 40th conference will be taking place this June 28th to July 2nd in New Orleans. And you can go to amac-org.com/annual conference to learn more about it. And if you're going there to learn more about it, then you got to know more about it, because this is the event of the year and you cannot afford to miss it, especially with everything that's going on in the world. But also, we still do work, and there's still a lot of work to do, and a lot of it will be done at this event. If you're new to this conference or new to this industry, it's another event that you cannot miss, or it's actually the event that you cannot miss. So that is really my lone announcement, because I don't want to take more from the new general manager of Atlanta Hartsfield International Airport. It's first official duty. Well, first, I should say, Legend Leapers official duty here as the GM. So I will hand it off to Ricky and Lauryn. Take it away, guys.
Thank you, Ramon, but I wouldn't worry about taking up any time, because anytime we have to deduct, we'll just take it off of Lauryn's account, because I don't know that people want to hear what she has to say anyway. So anyway, good afternoon, everyone. It's good to see you all again. Seems like it's been a while, but I guess it's been a month, something like that. Welcome to Legends and Leapers. As you know, this is our attempt to entertain, inspire, educate, motivate, whatever verb you want to latch on to. But we bring two amazing industry professionals together. One we call a legend, not necessarily because he or she is old. As you know, Jorge, nobody would call Jorge old, but he is our legend. But the legend is someone who's probably a little farther advanced in their career. And Mabell, who is the leaper. If you know Mabell, you know she's probably a little farther than a leaper. So, but anyway, for the sake of this show, and because we have to put up with Lauryn, that's the category we've asked Mabell to participate in as a leaper. And we try to bring these two together, hoping that the questions we ask will cause them to give an opinion or a response, and that, you know, might be some kind of a difference of opinion based on their point of view, based on the difference in their age or maturity, profession, or whatever it might be. We don't give them the questions in advance. And of course, they're always excited about that. But it doesn't matter, because I ask the better questions anyway. Lauryn's questions are prepared in advance. We do screen them before we allow her to say anything on the screen. And the questions still aren't that good. But that being said, she will begin the process of reading her script, and she will start that with an easy assignment that we've given her, and that is reading the bios. Lauryn.
I am saving all of this energy for after I read these bios, just for you, Ricky. You know, Jorge, we definitely have determined he's not old, but quite seasoned. So you all bear with me while I read this. So Jorge Roberts is the CEO of Avports. It's a 98-year-old company formerly known as Pan Am. Not sure if anyone's heard of it. World Services, and widely regarded as one of America's leading airport operators and managers, currently operating in 15 airports across the United States and the Caribbean. Avports is owned by West Street Infrastructure Partners, a fund managed by Goldman Sachs Asset Management with over 17 years of experience in airport management and public-private partnerships. Jorge has held executive positions with prominent airport operators and investors, including the Carlyle Group's Carlyle Airport Group, Grupo CCR, Airports Worldwide, TBI, OMERS, and Houston Airports. Jorge has led transformative P3 projects across the United States, including the $100+ million 40-year-old P3 for Manassas Airport in Washington, D.C. metro area and $180+ million 43-year P3 for Tweed New Haven Airport. He also co-originated the $9.5 billion, that's with the big B, not the little, P3 for the new Terminal 1 at JFK Airport. Internationally, he has managed airport P3s in Costa Rica, the UK, and Sweden, while contributing to bids for projects spanning Latin America, Europe, and Asia. An engaged leader in both industry and community initiatives, Jorge has served as a board member advisor for the Latin American and Caribbean chapter of Airports Council International. He currently serves as the president and advisory board for Vaughn College of Aeronautics and Technology, the National Leadership Development Committee of the American Association of Airport Executives, and the board of the University of Washington's Friends of the Educational Opportunity Program. Additionally, he has contributed to committees for the Airport Minority Advisory Council and volunteered with Management Leadership for Tomorrow. Jorge holds an International Airport Professional accreditation from ACI and ICAO. He graduated with honors from the University of Washington in Seattle, go UW, earning degrees in economics and business, and later obtained an MBA from Harvard, that's the Harvard Business School. Whew, all right.
I'm sorry, Jorge.
Ricky could never. Ricky could never. All right. So now we're gonna go to
you're old, Jorge. By any measure, and you're old. I'm sorry.
Jorge, you now see why Ricky doesn't read the bios. We wouldn't get through half of them. So Mabell Garcia Paine is the founder of Viridis Consulting, brings 2 decades of extensive strategy and implementation experience in the energy industry. Recognized as an innovative leader, Mabell has a proven track record of transforming intricate business and policy initiatives into customer-centric strategies. Her expertise in strategic marketing facilitates the creation of solutions that drive both growth and innovation. Mabell excels in data collection and analysis, ensuring data reliability while enhancing customer experiences. She is solution-oriented and highly collaborative, demonstrating proficiency in working across various business units, technology implementers, and community organizations to achieve ambitious carbon reduction and community equity goals. Ms. Paine received a Bachelor of Arts degree in Liberal Studies from California State University, Northridge, and a Master of Science in Entrepreneurship and Innovation from the University of Southern California. She is the chapter president of WRISE, is Women in Renewable Industries and Sustainable Energy, and a commissioner for the city of Pasadena.
Wow.
I don't know who the legend and who the leaper is at this point. Both of you are quite seasoned, as we discussed. I'm impressed just reading the bios. And then there's Ricky.
You know what? Cut her off. Well, we're gonna stick with this theme, and we're gonna let Jorge be the old person in the room. Okay.
Agreed.
Even
no, he's seasoned. Don't call Jorge old. He looks younger than you, Ricky.
So, let me take the first question. So we're making a big deal out of experience, be it, old or new or whatever. Experience, it's all good. Can both of you kind of look back in your lives? It could be your personal life or your professional life. And can you pick an experience that one would least expect to have an impact on your success? Some odd experience, or one that the people that are listening would probably, if they knew you that well, they would probably surmise that that's least likely the experience that made a significant impact on your life, but it did. Got you, Mabel. You're looking up in the sky already.
It was the way he framed the question was confusing, but he clarified. So hopefully that helped you guys.
I can go.
Thank you. Makes
All
some
right.
sense to my question, Mabel. Thank you.
So what immediately came to mind, and sometimes that's what you need to go with what comes first to mind, is little Mabel, oldest one in her family, oldest grandchild, but literally the littlest kid. Like when they would line us up by height, I was always the first one with awkward glasses, gap between my teeth and retainers, but the smartest kid in class. I remember that and kind of being a little embarrassed by it, but it was a thing even from like when I was in first grade, and like not just being smart, but being connecting with people, with my friends, with other classmates, and then inevitably, like in eighth grade, there's people have boyfriend girlfriends even in eighth grade back then, and whenever there was like boyfriend girlfriend problems, they would come to me. So little Mabel, this little smart little kid, and yet also like a problem solver at 13 or 12 or however old I was. And I would say to this day, that's true. That's the essence of Mabel. But I remember just being extremely awkward. And maybe that stood out, like being awkward and like always wanting to prove myself. And then so you fast forward to today. And I'm usually the only woman in the room. I'm usually the one who is not from airports. I'm from utilities and energy. And yet I'm a problem solver.
Mabel, that was an excellent response to an excellent question. Thank you. I see you and I we're at a level Lauryn hasn't gotten to yet. So thank you for being able to connect on that.
You're
question.
welcome.
Jorge, no pressure.
Yeah, no problem. It's just thinking of a couple of experiences, more like Mabel and childhood experiences, and one is just had the benefit. My family, I was growing up in Mexico, and we weren't part of. We didn't have a lot of money. We had enough to live comfortably, but I was sent to a private school. I was academically. I had good grades and did well, and so I went to a very elite school, and I remember relating to people that are part of the 0.1% of Mexico, and trying to relate to them when I had to travel by the metro or the subway to school while they had their private chauffeurs, and said, well, what do you do on the weekends? They would go to Houston, they would go to New York to shop. I just had to do my thing. And so one of the things that I learned was, that because you have money or you have access, that doesn't make you're extra special. And there are all types of people, and there's good people and there's not bad people. And so allowed me to really relate to people in that category, and learn how to defend myself, even though I didn't have the means that they had. But learned that I had other strengths and I could contribute as well. And so it allowed me to, as now in this position, I have to relate to all types of people, all the way from our owners up in Wall Street to our people down in operations in the ground handling or down in the firefighting. And so that experience really shaped me to really adapt to any situation or people, because I could be comfortable or uncomfortable, learning to be, I guess, comfortable with the uncomfortable. That's really where I think that shaped me a lot.
So I'm going to stick with the experience thing to try to pull out some stuff that's probably not clear to the audience based on Lauryn's reading of your or attempt to read your resume, your bios. So I was talking to an airline executive earlier today who was lamenting about how, he was kind of paying attention to a number of his peers who, in his mind, advanced in a way in their careers that he has not. I was surprised to hear that, but in a way that he has not. And he questioned perhaps some of the decisions that he made or did not make early in his life. He made the point that he wished he would have been more aggressive with certain career decisions early in his life, and perhaps he would be at a different place in his career. This guy's a senior vice president of an airline, by the way. So I'm going to ask you a related question. Is there a decision or two that you can harken back on in your lives, and perhaps you feel that had you made a different decision or had you taken a different approach, your life would be in a better place? And I'm using that word intentionally, because you can say, well, you think you're in the best place that you can be, and that'd be fine. Can somebody make sense of that question, or at least answer in a way that Lauryn can understand the question?
I'm gonna let Mabell lead here. In Mexico, we always let.
Oh,
Oh,
that's good.
I love that.
That's a good excuse. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
good
A
line.
gentleman, I love it.
Yeah.
They're absolute. So it's I think all of us at whatever level you're in, you wonder about that. And so I clearly remember I was in my late 20s, and I was a senior marketing manager, and I've had a very varied career. And this was for Ticketmaster.com, so in entertainment. And the next level up was executive vice president of marketing. And what ended up happening was I was ready to be promoted to director. And it just seemed like the obvious path, and how awesome, because I was very career focused. There was a big but, though, and the big but was that I ended up meeting somebody who ended up becoming my husband. We immediately started a family, and my career went, so as my family life, personal life went like this, my work life went like this, because I had a baby. I had to go on maternity leave. Mabell, who used to work 50 plus hours, 60 hours a week, where is she? And then on top of that, I didn't have the calmest of babies. I had a colicky baby, so I couldn't immediately come back to work, and it was a mess. And so I had to, as many career women, I had to improvise and decide what was more important. Do I just make this job work for me, and have somebody take care of my kid, or and treat it like a kid, like, oh, here's this extra responsibility, or wait a second, now this other part of my life is full. So fast forward, I ended up having to leave that job. But fast forward where I am today, I'm president of my company. The company has been around for over 6 years. I've been married for 25 years. I have 2 great kids. So what's the long game? And if you have a family, and what is the family's role? Maybe your significant other, in terms of defining what is success. And maybe it is becoming going up to the next level. And those are conversations to have. And maybe you need to apply pursue a higher position in a different airport, maybe. But I think about the whole game. When you are 80, 90 years old, what defines success then? So I'm adding deepness and depth to this conversation, because I think we are whole people. It's not just about our career.
All right.
At least for me, I think, Ricky, what you were asking, if we have any regrets, right? Or could we make other better decisions? I think you always think that you could make certain better, but at the same time, I know you think I'm young, but I'm a little older probably than what I look like. And I've come to peace with the career choices I've made, and I feel like I'm in the place where I need to be. And could have been a little bit different in certain circumstances, certain people in the way. Yeah, but I also feel that I'm incredibly lucky and grateful. And a lot of it is why I participate with AMAC and others, to give back, because along the way a lot of people have helped me, and I think living with regret, or could we have been more aggressive, or I don't live through those principles. I tried to just really look at every day on what we have, and that allows me to be happy. And I feel that I have to be that way as well as to be a good leader, because nobody wants to work for grumpy or, resentful or regretful leaders as well. I have in the past, and it's not fun, right? So,
That's one way one can look at life is they can look at it as a series of decisions, right? You can chop life up in a whole bunch of ways, but one way you can do it is it's just a series of decisions made or not made, right? And often what separates good leaders, good managers from not so good leaders or managers, are those that are willing, able, courageous enough to do something as simple as make decisions. You guys have made a lot of decisions in your professional career. Obviously, you wouldn't be where you are, and you've made more good decisions than bad decisions. For people out there who may be struggling with this idea of being decisive, making decisions, can you shed some light on your approach to just making decisions? And I hope you'll think about complicated decisions as you're talking, more so than the simple, easy decisions.
Jorge, please take this one first.
oh, okay, sure. Yeah, I think one of the reasons I was very intentional when I went to do my MBA and where I did it is because I wanted to improve on how I make decisions. And one of the things that I quickly learned is that the difference between really a manager that is effective versus not is just decisions, right? And Ricky and Lauryn, that to advance projects, there's nothing worse than no decisions, right? Even bad decisions are better than no decisions. And so that's something that I live every day, that my responsibility and my job is really a good portion is to make those decisions and make the big ones, as you said, complicated ones, Ricky. I also recognize that I don't have all the answers, and so I try to surround myself with smart people, smarter than I am, experts. I listen to them. I try to drive consensus in decisions so that we all align. Sometimes it's not possible, but at least I give people the chance to voice their opinions. In order, I also recognize that you're never going to have all the information, and that you can course correct. It's better to make a decision now. So analyzing the problem is easy. It's really deciding, okay, now. And so it's just about moving the ball forward and making that initial decision that allows you to continue to make serious decisions. Sometimes make them in steps, and that's something that I live actually every day. I that's one of the things that I wake up and I say, today, what decisions I have to make, and that's the first thing I tell also my staff and the team. It's, you're calling me, I get it, the update, all that, but what decision you need me to make to help you, or to how do we help what we need to get done. So that's something that I live by every day, and I think it's core to being an effective leader and manager.
Thank you.
I agree with what Jorge said. The way that I talk to my team about this is there is that real concept and truth of analysis paralysis, where the problem is so complex. A lot of us work on things that haven't been done before. That's why we're hired in these roles, and the world is so much more complex than in the past. So it's easy to say, I don't know. Yet what I encourage my team is that the world looks different. If you figuratively take an inch forward, move your foot a little bit up, and the purview you have is different than if you were to have stayed that inch back. And so that's very similar to what Jorge said. And so and then that could mean, for example, and there's this project that I'm working with a technology company and a local utility company. And there's all sorts of disruption going on with the distribution system. And so this technology could support what the utility company is looking to solve. And what I said was, why don't we have a discovery framework of meetings. And here are broad topics, and it's loosey-goosey on purpose. We don't know. But if we're on the basketball court, if we're talking and we're kind of learning more about what each other wants and what our challenges are and what are all those, they start coming up because you're having a conversation. And I guarantee you, after those 1 or maybe even 3 calls, which shouldn't be huge investments, you'll have an idea of a potential plan and an outline, and you move forward. And really, that's the core of innovation and how you accelerate things to happen. And if you fail, you fail, but you learn along the way. Again, supporting what Jorge said is that there's the worst decision is no decision, because you always find out something in moving forward. You can also just make sure that you're not taking super risky steps, or you can be really risky because the goal is so big and the outcome could be really big. So I think that's where the individuality comes in. Like, what's the scale of steps forward that you want to take? Super ambitious and risky, or maybe like Mabell, 1 inch at a time.
I did want to just add one thing, Ricky and Lauryn, to what Mabell was saying, that I've learned is as a leader too, and part of that decision is, if you're not available, you can't make that decision. And so I tell my executive team, if you don't have free time and are available, then you're not doing your job correctly. That means you're not delegating, you're not using your resources appropriately. And so I make an effort to be out of meetings and be myself available, so that when I get that call from my executives, or sometimes they're fire drills, or, we're now at 18 airports with over 700 employees, there's something that comes up every day. And so I have to make myself available, but also and if I'm not ready to make a decision, I also focus on my wellness. So if my headspace is not in the right, I say, let's delay that decision until I'm in the right headspace, because that's also important. The more I learn about myself and how I'm feeling, could affect that decision as well. So those are important elements that I've been focusing on in this job, especially.
Jorge, I think
Those
a lot
are
of that
very, very interesting perspectives. I'm sorry, Lauryn, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, Jorge, I think a lot of that comes with experience, but also maturity. I love that you just said that. So thank you. You guys know Ricky's in his new role. And he's feeling real fresh in that Atlanta air, because he's come out gun blazing. I'm just playing double dutch, trying to get my questions in. So thanks, Ricky, for giving me a moment. I want to stay along these lines, but I want to talk to, because both of you are in such niche aspects of our industry. I want to talk to little Mabell with the glasses and the gap, and I want to talk to little Jorge that was with the affluent of the affluent and, the private school in Mexico City. How did you get to where you are? At what point in your career, right? Mabell, you were with Ticketmaster. At what point in your career were you like, you know what? Energy and sustainability sounds amazing. I want to go do that. Or Jorge, asset management and doing that private and public sector funding sounds awesome, but I want to do it within the aviation space. How did you guys get to this point within your careers in such a niche area of our industry?
Yeah, liberal studies major, which was only because I had enough credits to graduate. I'm the oldest, again, as I mentioned, the only one who had gone to college, so I had no direction. But I had enough humanities classes that when I talked to it's terrible. And then my minor was French. So the big but, though, is I'm gritty and I'm curious. And my parents had ingrained in me, you're just as good as everyone else. You're, again, being a minority, it could easily show up on I'm sure my mom and my dad must have thought, we don't want Mabell to be limited. She's amazing. Of course, parents think their children are amazing. And they wanted my lens out into the world to be similar. Like, I can do anything. And so little Mabel with the freckles and the gap and the glasses, she went out into the world and was just gritty and would always raise my hand. But so, and yet I think there was a practicality in me that said, but where do I bring the most value? And I found that it was in the business area. So I took that marketing background and ended up working for a utility, and I learned their regulatory environment, very similar to airports in that there's heavy regulation and it wasn't boring. So maybe that's the first step. I thought it was fascinating. And then from there, learned that a utility, maybe an airport, if ever I were to have worked at an airport, was too constraining for me. I was more of a consultant. I liked the creativity of, well, there's a problem, can I solve it? And it was fun. So I went to the consulting side. In the consulting side, I then learned that I made the biggest value in business development. Can I bring in new revenue? And when you're there, you're closer to like the bigger strategic problems and how can you align the company's services or capabilities to then help solve these big problems and create new revenue for the company. And that meant that to me, that was the great equalizer. So when I was in my 30s, working mom with 2 kids, working my butt off, I was in business development and I was earning more than my male counterparts because it was just grittiness. So I think I read a lot. I read regulatory filings. I read the structure of what are the rules for this industry. And then fast forward to when I started working with DFW Airport, that as airports, as fundamental institutions in an environment must operate regardless of what craziness happens energy system, resiliency is a big deal. So now today it's this idea of like all this background that I know about utilities will support utilities in figuring out what is the best unique solution to ensure resiliency and continuous operation and also long-term sustainability. They're not doing it with the cheapest and most polluting resources. And so it just all kind of made sense, but I think I was just adaptable and creative enough to keep going and keep reading and understanding the environment that I'm working in.
I have to tell this this story. I'm sitting here and I'm getting text messages from my friends at BWI, and one just texted me and said, you know, Ricky, you need to turn the light on over top of your computer. You're in the dark.
Thank you, Kiva.
I just turned it on. So Stacy Gordon, who was my special assistant at BWIC, you're still managing me. Thank you for that.
That's awesome.
Thank you, Stacy. I was thinking.
Yeah, so on my side, Lauryn, it was a great question. I tell people,
Sorry, Jorge, can you say that one more time?
yeah, no, I was just saying that thank you for that question. I was just reflecting on it. And yeah, at a very young age, I was very driven. I knew that I wanted to make an impact in a big way. From an economic development, I've always been passionate about the betterment of people's lives, but I needed to have influence. I needed to have just a means to do it. And so when I was little, I remember actually standing in my grandparents' balcony because my mother ended up being a single mom and had to work. And so I was raised by my grandparents. And so I remember standing there and pretending I was the president and giving speeches, right, to crowds. And so all along I said, well, I'm going to be in policy. I'm going to be in public administration. And that's what always drove me to say, well, how can I get involved? And I saw infrastructure, transportation infrastructure as a means, but all along I knew that I was going to get there at some point. I wasn't really in a hurry. I knew that I had to accumulate a series of experiences, and every experience early on served me well. I've done all kinds of things. Like I thought I was going to be an architect. Decided to go into law school in Mexico, study Chinese, dropped out, sold Amway. I was a ballroom dance instructor. I worked as a teller. And then in school, I worked at an art gallery. I worked in, the student government. I was the finance and budget director, the first Latino in the 100-year history there. So I was proud of that. I was always involved in things just to accumulate experience. And also every time I met person, and I still do that, I'm always trying to learn. What can I learn from this person that can help me, become better or know something. And that served me well along the way. And so I was never like, I never grew up unlike most of my colleagues here, which I always feel like I wish I had that passion for, oh, the airplane or the aviation. Oh, drives me that jet fuel. For me, it's more the impact. And I felt that airports, I just serendipitously, I joined a company that was the Houston Airports, was partnering with Canadian Pension owners to create Airports Worldwide and acquired the TBI assets and the management contract. So I was head of TBI US for a while. And so those are the things that led me there from that drive to be involved in economic development. But I saw that airports really is in the intersection of that piece, but also, look, I also wanted to make money because, like I said, I grew up in that, but exposed to people that lived well, and I went home and we struggled. My mother was like, "You're eating too much steak, or we don't have enough. Eat more tortillas or eat, more rice and beans." Um, and oh yeah, I need some money to. I wish I had a car. Well, we can't do that, so I had to get a ride and so those are things that I just said to myself, look, I don't want to be in that position. I don't see myself as like going to become, extremely wealthy because that takes another sacrifice, but just live enough well that then I can focus on these other things. And to Ricky's question at the beginning, if I'd taken a different path and if I'd not gotten married and, I have 4 kids, I probably would have been leading, refugee camps and, someplace in the world, right? Like, disaster relief, things like that, that I felt that, requires some impact or been involved in other areas of government. But those are things that have led me. I have worked in the federal government. I worked at the Federal Trade Commission out of undergrad, but realized that I just didn't want to be just in government. I wanted to be in a place that's more dynamic, but still involved in impact. And I feel that the company that I'm in today, and I've been in the last 17 years in these different companies, are at that intersection of business, policy, and economic development. And I feel, like what we're doing in New Haven, right? That project has created 400 new jobs, right? Since it started 3 years ago, right? Those are the real things that when you go there and you look at and what's being built at JFK, Terminal 1, right? Knowing that I was part of originating that project, like, those are legacies that are intrinsic and intangible, that it's not about the money, it's not about the power, it's about things that you leave and the lasting impact and legacy. And that's really what's driven me and made, every decision that I've made. But in the end of the day, I tell people just do things, get involved in organizations and business and jobs, because everything will help you. And so now, and part of my job is to relate to people. And so I can talk about all kinds of things because of those experiences and that curiosity. So.
Well,
I'm
Jorge, it's
sorry.
funny that you said that because Tosin actually started the conversation before we even really got started and said Jorge for president. So let's not completely close the door on that yet. Because so far you've got quite a few fans in here. Between that or a dance instructor, I think we're nominating you for AMAC conference. We'll be putting something together and you'll be leading the way. So thank you. Just so you
Let's
know.
have fun. Yeah. No, I tell people, and Ricky knows this, I think I don't think incorrect reputation, but we work hard, but we play harder too, and Dozen knows that too. So, yeah, I thought about like what would be a political career. I think I'd be most effective in public administration. So I haven't ruled out like if I ever can become Secretary of Transport, whether here or in Mexico. I would say more here. I feel my life now is in the United States. I am half American, so I'm a Mexican American. I told you, Lauryn, initially, I'm actually a Tex-Mex. My dad was Texan, my mother's Mexican, so that's a real deal. And I feel like I could make an impact there, but that if the time comes, the time will come. It's not yet, and I'm patient about that. So if anybody out there becomes president, just give me a call. Don't forget that. Although now it's about donation, so I don't know. I have to get money so that I can donate and get that.
So you know what? If signatures are needed, you let us know, because it's a whole lot of people on here that are definitely ready to sign on the dotted line now. So
Absolutely. After you mentioned your dance life, after everything else you said was just wah 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 wah. Everybody wants to dance with you now.
Yeah, so that was my first job actually. I migrated. At 20. I had not much money. My dad was a veteran of war and American and had cancer, living off Social Security. Actually food stamps. I moved in with him. Didn't make much, but I didn't have any work experience, so nobody would hire me. And my mother we grew up doing dancing, and I taught just because I needed money on the side in Mexico, tango lessons, all that. So my first job was at a Fred Astaire studio in downtown Seattle, and I worked there. And then my dad one time, he's like, "Well, how much money are you making?" I said, "Well, I'm making about 20K a year." I wasn't making that much because I was junior. I wasn't getting all the clients yet. And he said, "Well, if you go back to school and you stay here at University of Washington, you'll come out making about 45, 50K. I said, "That's a great deal. I'm going back to school." So that was like the game changer there for me. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have gone back to school. I felt I didn't need it. I intellectual enough on my own. But anyway,
that 0.1%. So not to get too personal, my husband did a presentation over the weekend about Against All Odds. And it was interesting to see him put on paper all of the odds that he's beat and how he defied all of the statistics that were against him as a male, as a minority, as a kid growing up in the South Side of Chicago. And Jorge, you've spoken to this a little bit, but Mabell, you've spoken to a little bit as well. I want you guys to kind of get into it. And maybe you haven't thought about it fully, but I want you to do that now. What are one, if not two, of the greatest odds that you think that you were up against and you were able to overcome? And how'd you do that? Got him, Ricky.
Yes, it's not dancing in the rain, Jorge.
No. That's funny.
What comes to mind is in the energy industry, this disruption where I was really caught with like a fork in the road in my career. So in traditional energy, and we even look at airport operations, this idea of reducing kWh, electric energy usage consumption. And my whole career for the longest time was based on that. How can we be more energy efficient? And then peak demand became a problem between 4 to 9. How can you reduce energy usage? And so many different markets across the country, maybe world, are experiencing this issue. And part of the problem is that during 4 to 9, the utility has to bring every power source that they have online. And that could be many times a gas peaker plant. And you turn those things on because they're reliable, but they create a ton of pollution. And so as that became a bigger issue and the impact, the consequence of using these kind of resources during that 4 to 9 meant that we started caring more about greenhouse gas emissions. And it's not a like for like. It's not like you can go from energy efficiency to carbon reduction because they're not the same thing. And I remember thinking, I'm not an engineer. How am I supposed to now transition to this new world and still be supposedly a consultant who advises airports or government agencies on this transition? How can they reduce greenhouse gases? And I go back to like a theme is grittiness. Like, I'm just as smart as other people. I can research it, understand it. And what you'll find is that there's always the experts. I can't become an expert, but you'd be surprised how many times experts are in that analysis paralysis, kind of, they're stuck. And then the bossy Mabell, the little girl with the glasses and the gap between the teeth, says, all right, we need to move forward, people. And so then I'm infamous for sharing my screen document, plain Word document, and said, all right, what are we going to do? And I started just not jotting down things. And so I find that my superpower in these very complex discussions, when we're talking with DFW about a microgrid, that's not my area. I understand it enough to understand that there is a process, there's people, there's steps that need to be done. We need to assign people to next steps, et cetera, and we need studies and we need to analyze things, and let's go. And that's my superpower in action. And it's extremely valuable. So I think in those moments of, oh my gosh, there's this huge disruption in my industry, where do I fit? Taking on like qualities of who you are as a person and then applying it, because at the end, a lot of this is soft skills. It's not just the hard knowledge.
Yeah, I think for me, I think I mentioned to you, Lauryn, before the call that I grew up. My first 7 years, I grew up actually in Miami. My dad was a yacht captain. I'm first generation. He didn't go to school, so he understood the importance of actually going to college. My mother was a dentist, and she's the first. She was actually the second Latina to pass the board of dentistry in Florida history. The only dentist at that time in Miami. But because she was Mexican, they didn't believe her. She was a dentist. She said, "Oh, you work at a dental office." So I remember all that time growing up and knowing that, hey, it doesn't matter what people like believe you or not. Just do what you need to do, and if you do it, eventually people will recognize those talents. I would say that coming to this country, and I actually grew up in both countries, but I have that duality where in Mexico I'm the American, I'm the gringo, I'm called George. In the U.S. I'm Jorge, I'm the Mexican, and so I quickly realized that I had these talents, but I didn't have a lot of guidance or mentorship growing up, and I realized that other people did. So I found that the programs, like at the University of Washington through the Office of Minority Affairs, I started getting more involved in leadership, but also signing up to every scholarship. I had like 24 scholarships I got because I would sign up to every scholarship, and doesn't matter. And didn't really, I tried to, at the beginning I was like, well, am I taking advantage because I'm Latino or disadvantaged, low income, first generation? I said, well, others have this path, these access and of equity. And I realized that I needed to take advantage. Like I said, I always try to take advantage of what I'm doing in the moment. And I was involved in the McNair program, which was for PhD students or students that wanted to do a PhD. I said, well, maybe I'd do that. And I was part of the Mary Gates, which is, Bill Gates' mom's programs that they left there in Seattle. And so all those things in the end shaped me. But it wasn't until I joined the MLT program, the Management Leadership for Tomorrow, with John Rice. And John Rice, changed my life in many ways because who actually next month he got invited to be Harvard Business School's graduation speaker, and he's leading the ideas to increase representation of minorities and women in corporate America, and he's done a fantastic job over 25 years. But I was looking at MBA programs like just regional ones, and I didn't think that I could get into a good school. Because nobody told me. It seemed really far, Harvard or Wharton or Chicago, and these. I ended up applying to all of those three, and at that time, by the time I put the application through their help and mentorship, and I got in, but I realized when I got to Harvard Business School, I said, well, I made it, and then I realized that 3/4 or the majority went to Ivy League schools, and I was one of the few. And I was like, okay, well, there's all these networks, right? And how do I tap into that? And I started realizing, hey, they have their strengths, they have the access, but okay, let me be patient. Eventually, you gain some access, and at times you're not going to be equal, right? But and even with this job, I remember Goldman Sachs called me and said, hey, do you want to be CEO of Avports? I said, hey, I've not been CEO, but I know I can do it because I'm good at managing teams and people, and I've always wanted to do it. I thought it was going to take me another 15 years to get there, but hey, I'm ready to interview. And then they said, well, a lot of our people inside want, other people that have a CEO experience. And I said, well, that's not going to be me because I don't have it. They're like, but still interview. So I gave it my best shot. I've always tried to, follow what even John Rice says, you're always interviewing, present yourself well, showed up with my PowerPoint, dressed up well, you know, and and convince them to give me a shot. My first goal was not to get fired the first year. Passed the first year, 2 years, now it's 6 years. Now we're looking, you know, how do we actually monetize and realize this investment, but complete the projects like the New Haven project, you know, where we're building a new terminal, expanding the runway, and now in DC and Manassas, and we're looking at other projects as well. And so looking at those full cycles, but in the end of the day, just realizing that I told that to my kids too. It's like, just always, and even when we do our bids, just always feel that you did your best. We didn't get it. It wasn't meant to be. We move on. We learn. Can we do it again? And that. If not, it's not meant to be. Like, or you're not ready. And so, and that's okay. Like, time will come. Like I said, you know, like if I want to be Secretary of Transport or Commerce or whatever it is, the time will come. And if it doesn't get there, okay, well, it didn't get there. But I haven't lost that interest in that opportunity, right? So, but in the meantime, you know, I have things to complete here, and I try not to overthink too much whether I fit in or not. But I do recognize, you know, when we're at AMAC, looking around, there aren't that many Latino CEOs of airports. Period. Like, just, you know, like let's put that in the thing. So I feel I have a responsibility for others, and that's why I want to give back and be that role model. I still have my journey, but I know that there's others starting that journey. So it's about, if you can't see, you can't be, right? So I want to be that for somebody, at least one person. Then I feel like I did my deed and paid that back, because people helped me along the way. And if it wasn't for, you know, AMAC and other types of programs like MLT, the Friends of Educational Opportunity Program at the University of Washington, and all these things, I just wouldn't be where I was. And not because I didn't have the talent or I couldn't do the job. It's just I didn't have the access, period. And so that's why when we talk about killing DEI programs and all these things, it's not about like giving preferential treatment. It's about all of the pipeline and the access and opportunities. But you still have to show up. Like nobody did any favors for the job I have. I still have to show up today, right? And show to our ownership that I belong here, but regardless of I'm Hispanic or if I was not, you know. So, but I also recognize that I've been lucky, and I've had opportunities, and I've taken advantage of them, and here I am for that. So,
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is Jorge Roberts.
cheers.
Ricky, I just realized he has like a professional mic, and I feel like we need to get one.
You know what? I just picked up on the microphone thing.
I just realized he had it. And as I was saying Jorge for president, I was like, that's a real mic. Ricky.
So I learned that, Lauryn and Ricky, one of the first things in the first year, I got called by CNBC to be on CNBC. I don't know if you guys remember that interview I had with Laura Eisen. And I was like, whoa, Sarah Eisen on Squawk Talk and Squawk Box. And I was like, whoa, how do I do that? So I called a friend who was in media. Hey, you need a good camera. You need to show up well. You need a good lighting. You need a good mic, all these things. So since then, we've been always thinking about, like, even before this call, I said, well, does this look good with this virtual background? Does the sound okay? So we did a few checks. And the reason is because we're not face to face. I just need to make sure that people, you know, hear the voice, and I can be seen clearly, right? So, and that's important, because that's how we relate as humans, right? So that's
Ricky, I need you to take notes from Jorge, because he worked on his lighting, his camera, all of that.
But I can't beat that, you know. He's sitting there at Atlanta. Congrats, Ricky, man. You've earned it, man.
He's Jorge and she's Mabell, microphone or not, right?
Exactly.
Special. I do have one more question. It's perhaps not as serious as what we've just been talking about, but I'm still stuck on the dancing thing, right? So if both of you can look at your leadership styles, because both of you are in positions of high positions of leadership, would you describe your leadership style as more of a ballroom dancer or a line dancer?
Oh, salsa dancer. You need to give me more choices.
Okay, there you go. Dancing outside the lines. Salsa dance. Yeah. You know, can you line dance in salsa?
A little, yeah. Yeah,
Or
that's true.
ballroom dance in salsa? No.
Yeah.
Whatever,
Bring
whichever one you
salsa.
choose,
You can bring
you're gonna
salsa, like a
exactly,
salsa inspired
you're
line
gonna bring
dance. Yeah.
salsa to the
Right.
party. Okay.
Yeah.
A little hip swinging, right, exactly.
Ooh, I like it.
I don't know if I like it, but anyway, go ahead.
Yeah,
Well,
for,
okay, so now the chat's blowing up. Mabell for vice president, Jorge for president. Again, this is the lineup that I do stand behind. So thank you. Sorry, Jorge.
I want to hear Jorge. He doesn't get off the hook. I want to hear Jorge's answer.
well, I was just gonna say that it's both actually, and sometimes you need to learn when to lead and when to follow. And I you know, one of the things that being a CEO is
Nice.
tough because you show up to these meetings and people are like, okay, well, you're the one. I'm like, well, wait a minute, this is not my project. This is not my meeting. I'm just an attendee here. You're the one who leads. I'm following you, and so. That's something I'm very intentional about, and so sometimes, yeah, you have to lead, and you know, in ballroom dancing, there is a gender thing where the male is the one that leads, and others follow. In line dancing, where we all just have to follow and coordinate in unison. And I think one of the things that I did tell people that I learned by being in front of an audience and is two things. One is, you know, when you make a mistake, the show must go on, right? So like not get stuck on something that just went wrong. How do we just continue the plan that we had, stay the course, don't get caught in the fog of war or in the misstep in dancing. But also recognize that you have to project at times, like, you know, in on the stage. But other times you have to be part and coordinate. You can't just be on your own. And so part of leadership is knowing that balance, but also knowing how do you actually coordinate with everybody. And so in line dancing, and even in some performances, you have to like coordinate with others, and you need to know where your space is. You can't just be the one in front taking all the credit and doing whatever you want, because it's not going to look good and it's not going to be effective. So that's something that I also take in my leadership style, is like, how do we bring everybody together, but at the same time stay in your lane, right? And I have to stay in my lane, even though I'm the CEO. I stay in my lane. Like, so I'm not gonna pretend. And I tell people, it's like, I'm not gonna come in and tell you how the ops plan is, or what the master plan, or the architectural design, or how it's gonna get financed. I'm just here to coordinate and make the decisions. But in the end of the day, I'm not here to sell agave to Jose Cuervo, right? So if you're the expert, I'm not gonna pretend to know more than you do too. So,
And despite how we dance or lead, women do it in heels.
right.
Right.
But also,
That part
the other
too.
thing we learn is that the audience doesn't know everything you know, and so even if you made a misstep, so the same when you're giving a speech or that, I tell people, just don't worry. Like, people on the other side don't really know everything you know, and that's okay. Like, and so don't be too conscious about it, because if you do, then that's when you start to mess up, right? So just practice. Also, one of the things about dancing, the last thing, sorry to monopolize, is preparing yourself, right? Because people say, well, that's a performance, it's not natural. And I would say, no, it's actually, you practice enough there that by the time you do the performance, it's all natural, and you're just now giving the feeling of projecting and feeling the music, as Mabell saying, the salsa music or whatever it is, tango, any of these type of songs, but you don't have to think about the steps. It's the same thing when we're preparing for a presentation here or a bit. We prepare so that when we're there, we're ready, you know, and to perform.
So in closing, Mabell, is there anything else you'd like Jorge to say?
I thought keep going. It's so much fun, and the wisdom is amazing.
Yes, it is.
He needs a handheld mic so he can just drop it.
There you go. Drop that one. Don't try. Don't break it.
No, not that. That mic looks too nice.
There you
Just
go.
try it.
I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you all so much. I just always appreciate Legends and Leapers because, you know, we're always in such a professional space. We know what your title is and typically what you do, but we don't get to always understand you as a person, right? and really get to know you as the individual. And just the ability to learn so much more about both of you in such a short span is truly just magical and so dynamic. And I appreciate you both just bringing your authenticity and your genuine selves to this conversation. I know you were both so nervous because it is unscripted, because we couldn't provide you with questions, but you all knocked this out of the park, and I cannot thank you enough.
Well, we could have provided you with questions, but we chose
We
not
wouldn't
to.
have asked them.
Just
Yeah.
not to.
We wouldn't have asked them anyway. We just gave them to you to throw you off.
Yeah.
Also, Jorge, you talked about being a mentor and really being able to give back. One of the things that Ramon didn't mention is the mentorship program for AMAC through AMAC Builds Careers is open, and the deadline is closing soon. So if you are an individual, whether you are a seasoned legend or a seasoned leaper, and want to mentor and be able to sow into someone like these two individuals have sown into us, or someone from your organization, please, please, please complete the mentorship application for the mentor program through AMAC Builds. So appreciate you guys so much.
Yeah, we'll do, and the only thing I was just going to mention there too, what you just said at the end, yeah, we could have had the questions, but life is, we can prepare. But I used to work for a Colonel Marine, and he used to say, and my dad too, he was in the Coast Guard. Like the plan's good as the first shot fired, right? So we can all be prepared, but in the end of the day, I think this was very fresh. So thank you for the opportunity to as you said, to contribute, and hopefully some of these lessons are inspired, or at least allow people to take more risks, as you said, Ricky, initially, right, from that question about taking risks and putting yourself out there. And if it doesn't work out, then wait and prepare yourself again, or do something else. Maybe you're not adapt to what you wanted to do. So, yeah.
Well, you two contributed immensely, and it is greatly appreciated. Can't thank you enough for your time and your willingness to put yourselves out there. So thank you both.
Thank you.
You made it so much fun.
I know I did. I know I did, Mabel. I know I did.
She was talking to me, Ricky. She said, you, as in you, Lauryn, made it so much fun. She was like, thank you, Ricky, for showing up. So there's that.
Yeah, and Ricky,
and then Jorge, we need you to drop the
you know.
link to your mic and your lighting and everything else,
Right.
because
you.
if you've inspired nothing else, which you most certainly have, it's to show up as your best self virtually, so everyone wants to know
I appreciate
how
it.
to
Well,
do
I'm
so.
hoping that maybe lead an invitation by Ricky to go and see him at his office to say hi, and
And
Anytime.
bring
Good
him
to
some
see you,
lighting.
Lauryn, out at Phoenix, eh? But more
Yes.
in the winter when the weather's a little nicer.
It's beautiful right now, but no, don't come in about a month. You got to get here soon. So
Yeah, sounds good.
thank
Thank
you
you,
both.
Mabell, too.
Right.
Pleasure. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you all.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Take care.
Bye.